Hi everybody and welcome to TalkChain. Today we're going to talk about Russia legalizing cryptocurrency finally. We're also going to get into apparently this new statistic about 10% of money from ICOs is being stolen. And if we have time, we're also going to talk about how Korea is adding regulation to the current cryptocurrency markets. Rob, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Another down day in the market though.
Yeah, things could be slightly better.
Yeah, so total market cap $530 billion. Not quite down more than 10%, but across the board, pretty much everything's down. No real genuine reason for it, I guess, in the market or in the news that I saw. I don't know if you saw anything in particular, Rob.
Well, people were speculating that because equities were doing so well, people might have done a quick shift into something a little bit more
Yeah.
stable.
Yeah, I guess it's not a bad idea, given that equities have gone bananas. So I didn't have too much time to check today, but I think something may have reached a new all-time high, even though it's not surprising because this year in equities, everything's been reaching a new all-time high. But it's interesting right now. I've been doing pretty well in equities, not so well in cryptocurrency.
Great. Well, as long as it all balances out, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I guess it's important to have your beak wet in different areas. So
Yeah.
don't be shy when it comes to equities either. There's a lot of money to be made in legitimate companies, let alone not only in this stupid ICO space.
Yeah. Well, Warren Buffett, crypto, he hates it, but guy made a couple billion off of some regular equities.
Yeah, that's true. So I kind of drew a potential bearish channel, not really a channel, but resistance line here where Bitcoin, there's some support around 10,000, and it's bounced off that, and who knows? I don't know what to expect anymore. I still think that we're gonna find some sort of bottom, and then after some legitimate fundamental news that comes out, maybe about the Lightning Network, maybe about SegWit, that we might test new all-time highs. But otherwise, it feels like we're just going to stay between this 10,000 and 12,000, 13,000 area in Bitcoin anyway.
Yeah, no, it's entirely speculation right now with, well, really no news coming out about anything to change these markets. People are still speculating about the futures contracts that come to expire on the 26th this time.
Oh, which one?
Uh,
Do you know
I
which one that is?
think it was just CME future, which is it's tough because it doesn't make sense because there's not a large amount of volume,
Yeah, there's
but
not, but they're worth a lot. I think each
yeah,
contract is a lot of Bitcoin.
yeah.
I-
So
Oh,
anyone who is in it thinks that that Bitcoin will go to 15,000 by the 26th or shortly after, I think. Um, and that's all speculation as well, but just some things that people are saying.
right. So one good thing that seems to have come out today was Russia and legalizing, or yeah, I guess putting legislation together to legalize cryptocurrency trading. So originally, it seems like they were really not into it. Putin did not seem like he was on board with Bitcoin. He called for a Bitcoin ban, and they always talk about how it's about drug smuggling and terrorism. That's such a great talking point for governments, but they seem to have turned their opinions around.
Yeah, it's funny because it seems like Vitalik Buterin met with Vladimir Putin, which would be horribly, horribly scary.
Yeah, really.
So good on him for showing up. He looks like he'd be uncomfortable just meeting anybody's mom.
Yeah,
Um, but it looks like he convinced Putin to support it in a way.
yeah,
Uh,
and I mean he's the one to talk technically about it. So I guess if Putin has actual questions, he could really answer them in an in-depth way. I don't know if it's the most easiest thing to understand from a perspective of a dictator like Putin, or if he even cares. But
I
it
got to assume it's not a one-on-one. It's more of a we're going to do a presentation with some people who kind of get it, and they can kind of translate it from uh, Vitalik to to Vladimir.
Yeah, that's fair. But so we talked about this, I think, in a video last week. There's a lot of people in Russia, and it would be great to have more buying. So hopefully, from it coming top down from the government, it's going to really open the door for some investment in exchanges that are Russian and banking involved in bringing people into the cryptocurrency market, and that'll only push the values higher.
Well, yeah, no, and there's some speculation about whether or not it's going to be accredited investors only or something similar to accredited investors. So people who have enough money or make enough money to be able to take on the risk that crypto offers. If that happens, it will not open the door as much as we would hope, but that's only speculation. So hopefully it'll be open to everybody, and everybody can risk their money and get on this hype train.
Yeah, well, I think this is actually a risk for investors anywhere. So the U.S. government tomorrow can say that people who only have a net worth of $1 million can trade cryptocurrency. So these are like the cute little ways the government can use to keep people from trading it. And, so this accredited investors thing, it's largely bullshit. It's just fabricated from a government who said that you need to have this much net worth to actually trade. And, yeah, so hopefully it's not kept for people who only have so much money, but I don't know. In one sense, it'll say like it's protection for people, but I think if you can treat people like adults, they will respond in that way. And I personally don't think that we need government to tell people when they're eligible enough to invest in something that's high risk.
Definitely, if they did that, then people wouldn't necessarily make money off of the stock market after it crashes or anything like that. So really shouldn't be up to anybody else what anyone does with their money.
Yeah, definitely not. So this other thing that's coming around is the mining. So it seems like the country is going to be, given that their electricity costs are so low, that it's going to be very attractive for people to set up mining shops there.
Yeah, so apparently it's 50 to 70% less than the international average, which is great. I don't know how it is so cheap or what they're doing to make it so cheap, but it does benefit them. And so if they can set up some mining buildings, that would be ideal.
Yeah, and it would definitely help with decentralization, and we don't have to worry so much about China. So all of this is very positive, and hopefully it actually goes through.
Yeah. Ooh, imagine Vladimir Putin just sets up this big mining rig, just gets thousands of bitcoins.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, what they do say that he's like the richest person on the planet. We don't know like actual figures because he's got it all tucked away.
Yeah, well, that would be ideal. He sets it up in his personal home. It's like, I'm trying it out. It's a hobby.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great.
For some reason, I don't see him being too interested, given that he has like complete control over every single industry in Russia.
I thought you were going to say individual, but yeah, the industries too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's good. It's good to see this, and hopefully other countries take a page out of Russia's books because they're so great.
Definitely.
So the other thing that Rob and I want to talk about today is this headline from Ernst & Young. Well, it's from Reuters, but firm Ernst & Young has this data about 10% of $3.7 billion raised in ICOs has been stolen. So we don't exactly know how they come up with this figure, but it seems like due to hacking or just poor management that 10% of ICO money just gets lost. Yeah. It's gone.
It's brutal because it's not funny. Like obviously they're phishing, like they're just phishing tactics. So I guess if you set up like a fake website like Binance.uk, then might make it easier.
Yeah, and they only looked at 372 ICOs. So not a huge amount given that there's like 1,500 cryptocurrencies out there.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's too bad. And just everybody be very careful with the URLs that you're putting in, and make sure that everything that you put in is the proper address and everything, because it seems like it's obviously happening a lot if 10% of all that money is gone.
Yeah, and it would be interesting because you don't really see a ton of that on the forums, people asking where their money went. You would think that 10% of the posts would be, I
Mm.
sent my money to this address and I never received anything.
Yeah, so it seems like overall it might, yeah, I don't know. And it depends on the ICO too, and who they're targeting. So it might be too embarrassing to even ask on a forum if you're if you lose $1 million trying to invest in some shitty ICO that's not worth anything.
Yeah, that would be tough. Well, I think the one that they would probably target are some more reputable ones. Maybe nothing like
Yeah.
no, I don't know, but no, like any small one. Yeah, I guess you can't really necessarily call it shitty, but hopefully,
Well, so this is the thing,
hopefully,
but so I think it's important that we talk about this. So there's no, like, you don't need anything to do an ICO. They deploy coins, ERC20 coins, and they say, here's our white paper. But there's no standard. You don't need anything. For an IPO on like the New York Stock Exchange, there's very strict rules on what you need to have, who's providing the funding and all of this stuff, and who's backing it. So it's important that we read about this, and I'm almost hoping that a lot of these companies are going to talk about how much funding they've raised, how much they intend to raise, who they're talking to, because we have no idea about the revenue in any of these projects.
no, that's a good point. I guess Dogecoin is is a good example, or Garlic Coin, which their ICO came out yesterday,
Did you buy it?
which is I couldn't figure out how to do it, but I try to get involved. It's a strictly garlic bread based token. Um, it can't actually buy you any garlic bread, so
Really? Damn.
I don't know what the use case is yet, but
Mm.
I'm sure they're working on that in the background.
Yeah, hopefully. So the other thing that I thought was interesting out of this article was that apparently uh, the volume of ICOs has been slowing. So less than 25% of ICOs reached their target in November compared to 90% in June. So if if there's some sort of leading indicator about some sort of slowdown in a market, I think it's worth considering that this could represent sort of a slowdown in the irrational exuberance that people like to talk about. So people aren't just willing to throw their money at absolutely anything now, it seems, or at least a quarter of people are the only ones that are willing to do it, as opposed to 9/10. So it's making me think that either people are sort of looking at what's out there already and saying, okay, there's a lot of good projects right now that have potential and my money's better spent there, or they don't see anything good coming down the pipe.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone's really revolutionizing anything with these new ICOs. It seems like there's already kind of something out there for now, and it's not to say that that won't come, but people are definitely getting pickier with that versus kind of blindly throwing their money into anything that has ICO after it.
Yeah, and it might be a testament to sort of the quality coins that are out there now are the ones that are in the top whatever, top 100 or top something. And given that so many of those are just an idea right now, that I don't think the clearly the market isn't looking for more just like pie in the sky ideas, and they want to see some sort of delivery. So when we talked about Request Network, where a lot of people seem to want them to actually deliver on that rather than just, we're buying and we're hoping that the price goes up. It would be nice to see them actually deliver on some of their promises that they made.
Yeah, that's true. I think there's also people are kind of speculating less. So I think when ICOs first started, once they released to the public, they kind of pumped pretty heavily.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas that kind of stopped happening and the value kind of decreased
Mm-hmm.
after they were put on exchanges. So that might be a reason why there's a little bit less, because there's a little bit less incentive to start that up.
Yeah, and so this might all be sort of a reflection on why we're only seeing, or why we're not seeing sort of much more parabolic movement in the total market cap, and why we're sort of seeing some consolidation around between 500 and 600 billion in the total market cap.
Hmm.
So I don't know necessarily what that means. I think it's probably overall a good thing, just so that uh, rather than seeing a giant crash in total market cap, we see sort of this pullback and consolidation, and then as projects start to develop further, we start to see increase in valuation.
For sure. I think you're seeing that even in the day-to-day markets, like you're seeing good projects stay stable and good projects increasing while some other ones dip.
Hmm.
Um, VChain's a
But
good example. Walton Coin's a good example. Like
right,
they're good projects with a good reputation, and so while everything else is kind of falling off, they're holding strong.
yeah, that's true. And but it does bother me how everything sort of moves together. Those ones have been exceptions. VE Chain in particular, I'm very glad that the price that it's at right now.
Yeah.
I still think that that project has a ton of potential, and yeah, I keep waiting for a pullback to buy more, but I don't know if it's gonna happen.
I don't know if it's going to happen either. It doesn't seem like it, and it just sounds like they're advancing further and further. And once Thor comes out, I think that'll change a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah, it really could. So I do think that if we're looking at the total market cap, if we break lower than when we did on what was it, January 17th, if the total market cap goes below 428 billion, I think we're gonna see a tumble further down to maybe around 350. So something to keep in mind. But
That is a bold prediction.
well,
It'll be. I hope you're wrong because we're all
I'm
going to get broke.
So I think either it's gonna bounce sort of where it's at right now, and then we reach a kind of a higher high in the total market cap. But if we're not able to maintain that, I think you're gonna see a lot more selling.
Well, I think that means everybody should just hodl, and we'll all be all right if we just close our eyes and pretend it's not going down.
Yeah. So the last thing we're gonna talk about is actually how Korea is introducing more regulation. So Russia, I guess, good regulation to sort of bring cryptocurrency to the people, and Korea is actually sort of clamping down to make it less anonymous. That's sort of the my overall impression of this story.
Yeah. So basically, there's a regulation that the government is instituting for banks and crypto exchanges to share data with each other. Um, and there's a couple of reasons why they're doing that. One, to prevent money laundering. Two, to stop people from having multiple accounts. Um,
Mm.
and three, to prevent minors from getting involved when they are not supposed to be in investments.
Oh, are they not allowed? Is that a thing?
Yeah, so I think you have to be 18, I believe, is is how that works.
Oh, you mean minors? I thought you meant like
Minors,
Bitcoin
yeah,
minors.
minors as in children. Yes,
Right. Oh,
yes. Um,
gotcha.
but yeah, so it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I guess how much money laundering is actually involved. I guess it would make sense if you are going to launder money
Yeah.
to do it through cryptocurrency because no one can really track it. It does eliminate some of the anonymity. I can't say the word, uh, but it prevents you from being anonymous, and
Right.
and I think that might hinder the markets a little bit, and
It
it's hard to tell. It's hard
it
to tell.
could. I don't know. I think people should just be wary of that if something's going on the 30th, but I don't know. It seems like all of this stuff, it's all just like a ruse, right? The government's going to say, "Oh yeah, anti-money laundering," and we're trying to keep everybody safe, even though, there's no problem with big banks actually laundering money. I mean, they're supposed to be compliant with the regulation, but what, that big HSBC thing that came out a few years ago about them actually being involved in money laundering? So it's just a ruse, but I think they definitely want to control it and they want to tax it. So
Yeah, they're gonna get those sweet tax gains. That's all that matters.
yeah, to them I think that's all that matters, but they're gonna frame it in a way where they're trying to protect everybody, and that's largely bullshit.
Yeah, even if it costs people their anonymity.
Anonymity.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. And so, but I don't even think, yeah, so I guess the fact that you're going to have to make sure that your identity is verified between in the exchanges, that's definitely going to change things and make it harder for people to be anonymous. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like in most exchanges, like, do you remember if you had to give, I guess I didn't have to give my ID for Binance unless you wanted to take out a significant amount of BTC, right?
I don't know because I've never done it, but only only Coinbase and Quadriga CX in Canada have I needed to do that, and that's just because it links to the actual bank accounts.
Right.
Yeah, so
So
uh,
this going to be sort of the new thing is where your identity is like very clear up front, and that's how they can keep tracking you and force you to pay taxes on any gains you get.
exactly, which makes it worse if they decide to tax the in between trades, like the
Yeah.
crypto to crypto trades, then that would be nuts because they'll catch me. Well, if I was in Korea, they would catch me.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's going to be hard for them to do that, and I think they're going to have to demand a lot more from the exchanges and the banks if they're going to want that, because to ask people to keep track of that, it's going to be very difficult because it's hard to really say what a profit is until it actually goes back to another currency.
Right.
Because
Well,
they're just
I think it's going to be okay for them because one exchange is going to be compliant, and if it happens to one of them, then the government is okay with shutting everything else down, and then that'll be their main operator.
yeah, it's an interesting way. I never actually thought of it that way, but yeah, if they get one exchange that really does what the government wants, it could be the exchange of the country. But that's
Yeah.
something that I would predict more from China or Russia, not really South Korea.
Well, it's tough when you got billions of dollars in taxes that you can get from it.
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely right about that. So, other than that, guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you very much for watching or listening. If you like what we're doing, please click the like button or subscribe, or leave a comment if you want. And if you don't have a Binance account, please use one of our codes in the description. And you can find us on Pocket Cast or iTunes or Stitcher if you listen there. And with that, I want to thank everybody for listening. Rob, anything?
No, give us some insight on what you think about Russia, about Korea, about our markets just falling apart here in the comments below.
Thank you very much, guys. See you next
Take
time.
care.